Hi and welcome back to the Gemhawks YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me once again. Today I'd like to show you a variety of designs to create leaf style charms. Now at the basis they make a tiny little charm that you can pop onto a bracelet or an anklet or something. They're really useful to have as the counterweights if you're having an extender chain on a bracelet or a necklace, for instance. It's just nice to have something other than a gemstone sometimes. So the most basic design I will bring you down to the desk in just a second and show you. But I've got a variety of designs to show you, all kind of following the same theme, and that is a leaf charm. Size it up, it becomes a leaf pendant, but you can use it however you wish. So, if you pop down to the board with me now, here are the 5 pieces that we're going to learn today. So we've got a basic little petal or leaf charm, a slightly more exaggerated design, something with a bead in, something with a swoosh in, and then I'll show you how to add some smaller seed beads onto the design if you wish to enhance them further. So I'm going to be working with our Desert Island wires once again, 1mm gauge and 0.4mm gauge for that very last design where we're going to add on some tiny microfaceted beads or seed beads or whatever size beads you fancy, to be honest. As long as they fit on the wire, it doesn't really matter. So let's move some of these out of the way, and we'll start with the most basic of all of our designs. Now this is using a very short piece of wire. You can do this in 0.8mm gauge. This is quite a firm 1mm gauge that we're working with, just to show you that you can use all of those offcuts that you've collected over the years to create something useful, and it looks really pretty. If you've got offcuts in different colours, you can make quite a glorious design with all those different pieces. So we're going to come about 1/3 of the way down and pop a right angle bend over on the one side, and then we're just going to create that lovely shape as we often do. Bit of a smooth rainbow arc. Imagine that straight line is continuing. That's where we're going to put the pliers, or the tip of the pliers, to bring that bend back again. Not dissimilar to designs we've been working on in previous weeks, like so. So you have that basic leaf shape. We're going to support that basic leaf. We're going to wrap 2 or 3 times around the neck of the design, just continuing up towards the top. I've decided that this is going to be the front of my design, so flipping over, I'm going to trim away with my flush cutters and then just smooth that down like so. And then at the top I'm going to put a little loop on, so I'm going to grab hold of my round nose pliers, pop a loop around like so, and then we've got enough space up at the top there to complete those circuits of wire. Let's just get that tightened down a little bit so that it looks a little bit neater. There we go. Support your loop that you've created at the top and start drawing the wire around. You can of course use pliers if you prefer, but I'm just going to chase that until I can go no further. Grip hold of that loop we've created at the top, and then take that tail all the way around so that it sits neatly on the back of the design. There you've got your basic straight leaf or petal. I'm just going to add a little bit of 3D variation to it, like so, and up at the front, and you can put a little bit of detail in there if you want, just by scooching those in. So that's your basic design. If you put 20 of those on a necklace with little spacer beads in between, it looks amazing, it feels amazing, and it moves as you wear it, which is always good, just to add a little bit of interest. So we're now going to move on to the second of our leaf charm designs. So this is just a slightly longer piece of wire. This one is probably around about the 4 to 5 inches or so, and it starts off in much the same way. What we're going to do is start around about a little bit further than 1/3 of the way down this time, like so. Create exactly the same design as we began with. Creating that little leaf, bringing that all the way back around. Supporting the design so, but we're only going to come around once until that sits back towards the front. What I would do at the top here is create a loop in exactly the same way we have just done, so I'm not going to repeat that. But what we are going to do is take the tail that is sticking out from the lower section of wire and create a coil, like so. Created the first circle, and then you can just continue until you want to draw that down over the surface of the design. So again, exactly the same way as we did with the first one, you would create a loop and wrap that around the neck to give you that second petal or leaf design. We're just going to put the little bit of detail in there to give us a bit more interest. So that's the second one. We're going to move on to the third design now, which just has a slightly more exaggerated detail on the neck of the piece. Now this is absolutely fantastic if you've got odds and ends, the odd bead here and there, and you want to just use them up as a standalone piece. It's really quite nice as a charm on a bracelet, and it doesn't have to match the rest of the beads in the design. So we're going to take, again, a slightly longer piece of wire. Let me just pop that over so it's the correct way up. And what we would do is start around about half of the way down this time. This section is around about 6 to 7 inches in length, around about halfway along. We're going to do that exact same procedure to create the leaf. I'm sizing up slightly this time, and I'm putting a little bit of a bend in as we go, just as a variation on the design. So you can see that we've got that leaf design. You can work on making that symmetrical or asymmetrical as you desire. I'm just going to draw that all the way around 3 times, or 2.5 times if you prefer, like so. Give that a bit of a squeeze, very, very gently. What we're going to do is introduce a bead onto the end. Now, I went into my gem bead jar earlier to find a little bead, which I thought was in this pot and is lost. I will find that and come right back to you. Found it! So all we're looking for really is any bead that fits on our 1mm gauge wire. I'm just going to drop this exaggerated, I don't quite know what that is. It's a lovely red colour though. And I'm going to take the tail of that wire. It's passing across the front of the neck of the design. So I'm going to take that around to the back until it sits like so. Support it really firmly and draw that tail around. We want to get at least 1.5 turns so that that looks neat and tidy, like so. Trim the excess a couple of millimetres so that you have enough space just to take that around the back of the design, and then you would turn to the front again to create that loop exactly as we did with the first piece, and you can of course make this fancy if you desire. So that is your third design, which is enhanced with the mystery bead which went on a bit of a wander. So our fourth design, we're going to use again slightly more wire. And I think I probably cut slightly more than I need for this. I've got around about 9 inches or so, which is a little bit excessive. You probably need around about probably 6 to 7 inches again. So this is a variation on the leaf or petal design that we've been working on all the way through. So I'm going to show you how to create this piece. We're coming down around about 1/3. I am going to trim some of this wire because it's a little bit excessive. That is plenty to make one of those first leaf designs as we started off. I'm just going to put a little bit of warmth into this gold colour wire. It's a little bit feisty today. I'm going to come down around about 1/3 of the way through my 7 or 8 or so inches of wire. I'm going to create that basic leaf or petal shape. And you can form that exactly how you wish. You can make a basic shape and then edit it afterwards, or you can use the pliers to help you generate the shape from the get-go. Again, using the warmth of your thumb and fingers just to give that a bit of shape. So I'm going to take this all the way around to the neck of the design, hold that in position with the flat face of my pliers, just need to get that to sit correctly, and then I'm going to wrap that around 2 or 3 times, like so, until it comes off to one side at the top. So that's 2.5 passes that we've got going along there. Again, with the top of the wire, we would create a loop exactly as we did with the first design. I'm not going to show you that over and over again. It's a basic wrapped loop. So the section of wire that we have coming off to one side, we're going to give a lot of heat to, 3 or 4 times across, and then we're going to allow that to swoop around at the top and then come back in the opposite direction until it transects at the very, very base of the leaf. We're going to allow it to pass around about 5 millimetres or so past that point. You can always trim more off. Very tricky to add more on. So we're going to just take stock and make sure we're happy with how that looks. And then we're going to take the flat surfaces of your bent chain nose pliers, for instance, and we're going to make a right angle so that that sits across the very tip of the design. Flip the whole thing over and then support it very, very firmly while you bring the tail around. Now at this point you can judge, you can probably take another millimetre or so of wire away at this stage, and then just take the end there and draw it around until it sits nicely into that little gap that we've created. Let's get that straightened up a little bit. If it does get away from you, what you can do is just bring it out and get it under control before giving that a squash so that the end sits down inside the design, like so. And that is just gripping onto the very tip of the design there. You could straighten that up a little bit if you wanted to. And then at the top we would go back to creating our wrapped loop, which gives you this kind of effect, which is lovely. And you can see what I've accidentally done here is made an opposite pair. So they look really nice if you're making a big neck piece, for instance. And I'll try to dig out a photo and pop it into the comments on my Facebook page. So if you're watching on YouTube, do hop over to the Facebook page and have a look. And I'll show you some examples of previous work where I've used the symmetry aspect to this design. So we've got some that go left, we've got some that go right, and we have them cascading up from the largest in the centre, getting gradually smaller as they go up the neckline. And I will, as I say, I'll pop that as a photograph in the Facebook comments so that you can see an example of what that might look like. So we're now going to move on to our last example, which uses a little bit more wire again. Basically the same design as we've just created, so I'm just going to warm through some wire. I'm just going to trim some of this away. I've been a bit excited and cut far too much. There's no more than 10 inches here. So around about a third of the way down, we're going to repeat our part of the process where we're creating the lovely leaf shape. And I'm just showing you that you can create that as you go if you prefer, or you can post-edit it once you've created the basic shape. It's entirely up to you, whichever works best for you. So creating that leaf shape again for the umpty-diddliest time now. Bring that back up to the top. We're just going to support that. If it's easier for you because you're working on a grander scale, you can take some broader pliers and just hold that all very, very still as we start to wrap around the neck of the design. So 2.5 circuits around at the top before we come out to the side. And we're just going to put that heat into the design before we start creating that lovely curve effect. Now before we move any further, what we're going to do is wire on some random gemstones from the scoop, just to show you how easy it is. There is a dedicated video on this channel all about how to wire gemstones onto heavier framework, so if you need any further assistance you can always have a gander at that. I'm just going to grab a short length of wire and give you a basic demonstration now. So back down to the board, we've got our semi-made design here, and I'm just going to grip hold of maybe 10mm or so and just take that as an end piece, something to grab a hold of. Now if I can show you the piece that I worked on as an example, I took that and wrapped it all the way round so that it would gizmo effect all the way to the top of the neck, which I think is quite a nice design, so that's always an option. For the sake of speed, I'm just going to tidy that away and give that a little bit of a squish before we go to the pot of random gems. I'm just going to show you with one random gemstone. This is actually a faceted rondelle of lapis, which is not what I was expecting. I thought I'd picked all rounds. So the fine wire, this is 0.4mm gauge in a complementary colour, is sitting over the top of my little stem wire that's coming down. And I'm going to hold on to that very, very firmly as I draw the fine wire behind the stem, like so. So my fine wire has come over the front, through the gemstone, down and around underneath, and then I'm just going to wrap 4 or 5 times around the stem, 4 and 5, like so. Give that a bit of a tidy up before I add on another gemstone. Like, as I say, this is just a random selection of gems which I found in my bead jar. Just allow that to come all the way down, and at this stage you can just move that up very, very carefully. When you start getting lots of gems, it won't move as much because you'll have more traction between the coils of wire. So again, wrapping 5 times between, And then you could continue to add those on as you go. It's much easier to add all of the gemstones on at this stage, because when we get down to the base, we cut that wire to around about sort of 6mm or so, and then we create that angle back like so, and I'm just going to draw that around so that the tail sits inside the frame. Give it a squeeze, and then that will hold. That's actually slipped around, so I'm just going to get the fine tips inside until that sits flat and give it a squeeze. And you can see the idea there. You can obviously take a lot more time, but that's what the piece looks like if you're a little bit more careful. I've applied a little gentle curve to the design. That as itself is a really attractive little pendant, but you can size that down as well to make it a really pretty charm. So that's 5 different variations, all following exactly the same technique, but adding a little bit every time. And you can obviously, if you wanted to, the last design that we're working on, you could add a larger bead like the big red one we added in the previous design to further enhance the piece. So it's just a basic technique to give you something to play with, and when you layer it up, it really does look fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me again. I look forward to seeing you in the future. Take care of yourselves. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you've not already done so. Bye for now.